What's up, you guys? Welcome back to my channel. So, side note, I don't know if you can see that ginormous zit on my face. I'm dealing with adult acne, so that's fun. So yeah, my skin, you're going to be noticing probably a lot of bumps and blemishes as I find out how to get rid of my adult acne, which is just sort of an embarrassing problem to have. But I have my little friend with me today. Bella, say hi. We're on our way to go walk her. So, if you're new here, my name is Jackie. I'm a recovering addict. I've been clean and sober of all hard drugs and alcohol since 2014. Thank God. So today I'm not really feeling the best. I'm kind of getting over a cold, and so I just wanted to do kind of a quick and fast, like not car vlog. I just want to do kind of a quick and fast video to get it up because I've been having trouble with editing and all that. A video I tried to make was a little too complicated and I couldn't get it up in time, and then I got sick. So okay, let's see if that's better on sound. So I apologize, the sound's not going to be the best in this video, but anyway, my energy's not the best. I don't actually feel good. I'm coming off of a cold or something, but I still wanted to make a video. I'm just gonna do, so that's why we're just doing like the quick car style. I don't know, hopefully Bella's not too loud in the background. Let's see, girl. Let's see, can we get your ear going? Does that help you? You want a drink? Hang on. Okay, we'll see if that's better. So today's video, I'm talking about materialism and how I became basically obsessed with, I guess, materialism. How I fell into the trap of thinking things and stuff could fill me up when there was just like an emptiness inside me that I was constantly looking to fill up. And in my using days, I filled that emptiness, or I tried to fill that emptiness with drugs, alcohol, substances, and even people, like having codependent relationships sort of filled me up in a way, or I thought it did. It distracted me enough to feel like I was filled up, but there was an emptiness. There was this huge emptiness inside me, and when I got clean, I all of a sudden wasn't using drugs. I wasn't using alcohol, but I still had that emptiness inside me. And what I found to fill it up was food. I started to eat my feelings, and so I quickly started to pile on a lot of weight. And then when I got pregnant, it was just another excuse to eat more, because I was like, well, if I'm hungry, I'm just going to eat. I don't want to starve my baby. And keep in mind, I was coming from an extreme point of view, because in my addiction, I had an eating disorder, and I would go for really long periods of time without eating, so much so to where a telltale sign that I hadn't eaten in a long time is basically wasn't taking a shit. I would be like, it's been almost a week since I took a shit, so I knew that I wasn't eating enough. I had dealers that would have like sort of a system for me. If I wanted to re-up, I had to eat like a small meal or a little bit of rice or something. I had to eat something, or I had to drink down one of those, I think it was called like a Nutri-Shake or something. It was basically like a shake that was just filled with nutrients. Supposedly, I don't really know. They would say, okay, drink this. Until you drink this, you're not getting a next dose. And so then I would drink it. And that's I think that's why I stayed alive for so long, because if it was purely up to me, I wouldn't have eaten. I would have only done drugs. So then when I became pregnant, when I became sober and when I became pregnant, all of a sudden I was eating again, and I again was in a very extreme personality. So I went from eating little to nothing and almost only surviving on drugs and alcohol for my food and cigarettes, and to suppress my appetite and to rarely eat. And then I went from that to eating anytime I had a feeling, a boredom, a happiness, a sadness. I would just eat, you know? And I wasn't really aware of how nutrition worked. I never had been concerned with the number of calories I was eating. So that combined with pregnancy, and I quickly gained a lot of weight, all the way up till I was 268 pounds. And after I had my son, that's when I was just fed up with myself, and that's when I started my, at that time, weight loss journey. Now I'm on a fat loss journey because I've lost a lot of weight. Over 90 pounds I've lost, but then I ended up gaining back over 40 pounds because the way I lost the weight wasn't sustainable. So now I'm on a fat loss journey, which is building muscle and losing fat at the same time, because I'm not terribly unhappy with the size I'm at right now, but I want to do it in a sustainable way, and I want to make sure that my nutrition is on point. I want to make sure that I'm building muscle, and I also want to make sure I'm doing it at a slow enough pace to where I'm able to keep up with it and maintain it once the weight is off this time. So other things that I tried to fill myself up with all throughout my life, really, even during my drug addiction, I would shop for electronics. I would shop for clothes. I remember at one point I took out a student loan. I didn't need a student loan. My school was covered that year through a program. It was called vocational rehabilitation. They covered my school cost, but I took out a loan so that I could buy a bunch of electronics that I didn't really need. I just thought I needed them. So I felt like it was like one of those things when I was in the worst of my shopping addiction. The way I can describe it is I want something and I want it so bad that I justify to myself that I actually need it. Did I need a flat screen TV? Did I need a brand new laptop? Did I need a brand new phone? No, but I justified it to myself to believe that I did. And so I got a student loan for, I think it was like $2,000, and I went out and bought a bunch of electronics. And then, me being the drug addict that I am, I eventually sold off all the electronics for drugs. I'm still paying on some of my student loans to this day for the decisions I made in my addiction. Another thing I did was I took out student loans and I used them up, and I bought stuff and I used that up and I burned through it. And then I got so bad on the drugs that for a long time, I would say over 5 years, I just forgot that I had student loans. I didn't think about them. I wasn't in a location where they were sending me mail in a way that they were reaching me. Like, say for instance, I was homeless, I was homeless for a really long time. So I was bouncing around from house to house to house. So I wasn't getting mail. So my student loans were going to my parents' house, and I wasn't getting them because I wasn't in contact with them very rarely in the worst of my addiction. So that the interest on those loans just grew and grew and grew to where the loans became over $20,000 worth of loans, which I know isn't a lot to some people, but it's a lot considering the fact that I didn't need to even take out these loans. So I was trying to fill myself up with clothes, getting a new car. Getting even a new-ish car, so I tried to fill myself up with getting new cars, getting new clothes, getting new gadgets and gizmos. And the thing I started to realize, even when I was in the worst of my shopping addiction, was as soon as I would get something, it was like it was dead to me. It was like, okay, on to the next. Kind of like with drugs. As soon as I ingested those drugs, there was like a rush of, an intense rush of like the first 5 minutes. And then I started to feel that, okay, what's next? on to the next. There was never enough. It was never enough. It was never giving me what I needed. It was never filling me up like I really needed. So once I was in therapy for a while and it became glaringly obvious, yes, I have a shopping addiction. Yes, I have a drug addiction. I do have a lot of problems. Yes, I have an eating disorder. Then it became clear that I needed to start doing something about it. So I started working out regularly, even though in the beginning I completely hated working out. And I've talked a little bit about that in my other videos. But I just did it. I just made myself do it because I needed to do it. I was doing it for my son. I was doing it for him more than I was myself. But then it got to the point where it was like, okay, I'm doing it for myself too now. I started eating better. I started learning about nutrition. And the way I started educating myself was, I invested in a personal trainer for like the bare minimum so I could just grill them with questions, have 1 free session and I think 4 paid sessions. And I invested in that. I think the cost was like just under $200. So that way I could get as much information as possible about weightlifting and fitness and working out without having to pay, a really, really, really high rate that I couldn't afford at the time. And I mean, I probably really couldn't afford the $200, but it was something that I felt like it was going to be worth the cost because how much I was going to be able to learn and how I was going to be able to run with that information. And I really did. I took some of those exercises I learned from them and I still do a lot of them to this day. And I can be confident that my form is correct on them because I learned them from a professional. And then I also, another thing I started doing is I started to research minimalism, essentialism, and I started to learn about those topics. And I found it interesting how other people with similar problems were talking about, oh God, my hair keeps going in my mouth. I think I've always been a pretty spiritual person in the sense that I've always had a code of morals that I've lived by, and even in my addiction, I would uphold those morals to the best of my ability. Of course, my top 3 were loyalty, respect, and honesty. And in my addiction, the fact that I wasn't able to uphold the honesty, actually a lot of my morals just started to deteriorate the longer I used, but that was something that always bothered me. I had like an inner turmoil, going back and forth. It was like the drugs were winning, but that true inner part of me that wanted to be this better version, that knew I was capable of more, that part of me was like screaming out, you have to fight back. You have to get out of this. And also, I think a big part of that was God. I've been raised Catholic, and I knew about God. God wasn't this foreign concept to me, but up until my active addiction, I didn't recognize God acting in my life. But when I think back on my addiction and some of the worst times that I went through, I had what I call and what some other people refer to as God moments. There was the time that I jumped out on that train track, and that train came within inches of just bulldozing me. And to my knowledge, I was the only one out there. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. I was just done. I was ready to check out. I walked out on that train track in the middle of the night. Nobody else was out there. I told nobody where I was going. Yet, dude found me, and he said his dog led him to me. And he pulled me off that track within minutes of me ending my life. And that I would call a God moment. God worked through him in that moment to let him know where I was at. I guess he worked through the dog too. He let him know where I was at. He found me and he pulled me off within a moment of me ending my own life. That was a very powerful God moment. There was a few other very powerful God moments, and these type of things started to make a lot of sense to me. It was like, even even then, when I was really struggling, I would pray out emergency prayers. So I would pray when I was in jail, God, please help me get out of this time. I swear I'm not going to do this again. And I think a lot of my prayers were empty, but still a lot of my prayers were answered when I was at my worst. And I know that's not really how it always works. You don't get what you want necessarily when it comes to praying for things. But a lot of times I was just praying for help, God, help me. Please, God, help me. If I'm supposed to get sober, please help me get sober. Please, God, help me do the right thing. Please, God, just guide me. I pray for guidance a lot now in my life because I find myself getting confused a lot and not really knowing what to do as a parent, not really knowing what to do as a wife a lot of times. I'll just pray for guidance. God, please guide me. Please guide me in this decision. What am I supposed to do? God, please offer me guidance. Please help me discern right from wrong so that I can make the right choice and guide me in the right direction. So when I started to become more spiritual in my sobriety, that started to also fill me up. That started to actually fill me up in a way that nothing else had before. I started to be able to believe in something. I could believe in something that was more than just myself. I could believe I was part of something bigger than just myself. Now I was entrusted to be a parent to Nico. I'm entrusted to be a wife. I'm entrusted to I call them like service positions. I'm in a position of service. How can I best help my family? How can I best raise my son alongside my husband? So these are positions where I am in service to somebody else. It's taking me out of myself and giving me a greater purpose. And that has been one of the most fulfilling things, being a mother, being a wife, and also having a relationship with God. These things are filling me up in a way that drugs and alcohol never could. And as I started to research, like how to get rid of my shopping problem, Shopaholic, blah, 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 I started to realize that, there was this contradiction. I'm a reseller, and that's where most of my money comes from in my business, is just buying things at thrift stores, estates, and styling them and posting them online for sale. And I make a decent amount of money doing that, but there was still something missing. So the missing link seemed to be that I was buying all this stuff, but then the stuff was starting to accumulate as far as I wasn't listing it fast enough. So it's kind of all sitting around in my living space. And then a lot of it, I would buy it for myself or for my son or for our house, like home decor, because it was like, it's such a good deal. I mean, I can't pass it up. I don't want it to get wasted. I want to do something with this. I want to use it. It's a really good deal. There's all these reasons why I'm picking up all this extra stuff. And before you know it, I'm surrounded by a bunch of stuff that I didn't really need. And even though I wasn't paying the retail price for it, it was still stuff. And I was falling back into that materialism of like, oh, well, it was a fine line between reseller and, basically shopaholic. So being that I am somebody that had a severe shopping problem, I started to have to kind of check myself in that and start to research. That's when I started to fall into minimalism and essentialism. And what I'm finding is that I enjoy shopping for other people, and that can be a healthy outlet for my shopaholic, I guess the shopaholic in me, as long as I have a budget and I'm actually listing all the items. Like right now I'm currently listing 20 new items a week and 20 older items a week. Ew, Bella, I heard that. So eventually I might grow more than that, but the idea is I have a limit. Like, that's how much I purchase, that's how much I list, and if I get to the point where that's easy and I want to do more, I can, but this keeps me in check so I don't have just a bunch of stuff that's sitting around and it's not working for me. And then I'm starting to downsize my own collection of clothing, shoes, home decor, yada yada yada, bunch of stuff that I picked up that I was gonna do arts and crafts with that I never got around to. All of that stuff is starting to get sifted through, donated, recycled, sold, all of that, so that I'm basically becoming an essentialist. I'm buying what I need, and other than that, I can buy from my store, again, what it needs, but I have limits. I'm not just endlessly shopping. I'm not just going to go shop because I was notified that there's a sale. And I even implement no buys for myself in my personal life. Like, for instance, right now I'm on a no buy. I don't need any gym clothes. I don't need any summer clothes for the season coming up. I don't need any more winter clothes. So when I'm out thrifting, if I see something for myself, I'm gonna leave it behind because I'm on a no buy right now. Unless it's a need, then I'll go out and purchase it, and I'll try to thrift it first. So I guess I'm just being much more conscious about how much I'm consuming. And the second part of that is I'm creating more. I'm focusing on creating more because that's what was missing for me with reselling. I've always been an artist, and I lost sight of that for a while. I got clean, I got sober, I started reselling. I kind of became obsessed with it, but then it kind of died off and I got burnout. I got burnout because I was trying to do too much, and then it started to take the pleasure and the joy out of it. And I know that every job isn't joyful and pleasurable, but that's why I became self-employed, was because it was enjoyable. I was able to make my own decisions. I was able to constantly be learning. There was so much to do all the time on my business, and there still is, and that's why I fell in love with the whole process of it. But when I wasn't taking care of my health, and I wasn't taking care of my nutrition, and I was just basically consumed with work and learning and reselling, I became burnout. So that's when I took a step back, and I dedicated a whole year to learning about other ways to diversify my business. And so during that process, I got more involved with the art side. It was like, okay, reselling is great for the part of me that loves the shop, and I love fashion and I love style. But what about the artist in me? The artist was just forgotten, and art was always a huge part of my life before I became addicted to drugs. And even when I was using drugs, I was still drawing. I can show some pictures. Maybe I can insert some pictures here of some of my drawings when I was using. You can see the artwork wasn't good, but I was still drawing. I still loved to draw, even when I was getting high. And so I started to discover ways that I can make art part of my job. So now on the side, I'm building up digital products. So I'm starting to design like the interiors of books. I'm designing journals. I'm going to design stationery, thank you cards, possibly more wall art. And once I get a collection of these put together, then I'm going to open an Etsy store. I tried to open a store, but it's not quite ready yet. It's technically open, but I'm redoing the store, and I'm going to do all printable products instead of print on demand. I'm going to do all digital products. So these products, the customer can print how they like, when they like, and that way the cost to the customer will be so much less, because I'm not mailing them a product. I'm not going to be a drop shipper, which that didn't agree with me. So anyway, I just wanted to share some of this stuff because I went from feeling empty and having nothing and filling myself with drugs and alcohol to finding healthy ways to take those character traits, the shopaholic, the person, that insatiableness. I was able to find spirituality, opening a business, fitness, nutrition, and art. So those are like my top 5. Those things help me so much. And throughout this whole process, now I have those outlets which are much healthier. And every day that I practice using those healthy outlets for those kind of personality traits, because I have an addictive personality, so I'm a very all or nothing person. So when I struggle with wanting more, then I refocus that energy on, okay, go read a book, or go learn something new, or go do a workout. I rechannel it, or go shop for inventory. I rechannel it in a way that's going to wear me out, but it's also going to use that energy in a healthy, productive way. So, okay, somebody's falling asleep on me here. She wants to go for her walk. I hope the sound wasn't too terrible on this video, but I'm going to end it for today. If you've watched this far, as always, thank you so much for watching. And until next time, stay strong, stay grateful, and stay positive.